back to Sound Advice. I'm Game Goth, and this is Alex, our encyclopedia of sonic mayhem. Alex, what is today's theme?
Today's theme is,
Would you like me to read it?
could you, because I forgot my cute little descriptor.
This is what you had wrote to me earlier today. 80s Primal industrial rumblings from San Francisco on the Goth tip.
That's the one.
I mean, is there anything you want to say before we listen?
Well, sure, I guess I would, for context, like to say that, we spent last time in Southern California around the same era. It was 81, mostly 82. Now we're gonna go up the coast to good old foggy, gloomy San Francisco.
The PCH.
We're gonna take the PCA, hitchhike our way up there, see what kind of trouble we get into, and around the same time period, see what's going on up there with sort of weird, dark, silly, bizarre, acid-drenched, and gothy music.
The hippies had long been burnt out by this period.
Oh yes,
long been
yes.
burnt out.
They've been burnt out and burnt up by many of the punks of the time, because punk was definitely a big factor in San Francisco, as it was in Los Angeles in the late 70s, and by the early 80s we had hardcore. Punk had sort of morphed into hardcore and into other weirder strains, and that's sort of what we're going to be hearing here, just like we did with death rock in Southern California.
But this is industrial music, which, and I had already listened to some of the songs, and they're very, shall I say, challenging. It begs the question, when does music stop being music and start just being noise?
And that's a good question, and I think I think it's interesting to that the music that toes the line between music as generally accepted and understood by the public and by all of us, and noise as is experienced by the rarefied few who enjoy listening to it, or just noise in general. The noise of everyday life, the noise of sort of fear and terror and whatever. I think it's wonderful that what we're exploring today marries the two. And
well, let's get into it.
All right.
So this is the first song we have here.
So the first song is by an excellent little band from San Francisco, very short-lived but fantastic group called Factrix, and it's called Splice of Life. This is their debut 7-inch single, and I can't tell whether this is supposed to be the A-side or the B-side because there are two songs on it. It doesn't really specify which one you're supposed to listen to first. But yeah, that's this. I think it came out in 1980.
What I like to call music you can do the dishes to.
I like the idea of doing the dishes to Factrix, or breaking the dishes, more likely.
Staring at your hands.
Staring at your hands while they bleed because you broke the dishes while you're trying to do them.
Wondering what it's all for.
Yeah. Wait, what's that?
Wondering what it's all
for. Wondering why we're even doing the dishes and not letting them molder in the corner. Yeah, it's a fun vibe. The vibe is it's a heavy vibe. There's a vibe going on. This being the Halloween season, it being October, I feel like especially the first 20 or so, 30 seconds of that song are just, you don't need to play the scary Halloween record, with all the scary sounds on it.
With the rumbling chains and the moaning and the wailing, you can just play this.
Just play this, and
for the children.
It's unsettling, but it's fun. Once the vocals kick in, and you've got four things happening in this song, and I love the sort of minimalism of it. The challenging aspect of it too is what you got here. You got the lead singer doing this sort of just very chill tonal vocal delivery, not singing but reciting this bizarre poem, some sort, this tone poem. when you have the background vocals where they're distorted and warped purposefully, obviously, you've got this like analog synthesizer that starts the song that's burbling the whole way through, rumbling and tumbling.
Like a primordial ooze.
Exactly. The swampy sort of weirdness happening, that layer of atmospheric sort of noise, if you will, and then this beat that just propels you forward the whole time, that just sort of stumbles and tumbles forth, and and it's weird because you don't know where it's going, but it goes, and it goes for a few minutes, and then it gets the hell out of there, and the whole vibe is very sort of it's dark, but it's still a little. It seems to me to be lighthearted. It's experimental music, but it's so inherently gothy because it's so bizarre and sounds self-consciously sort of dark and spooky. I find it very enjoyable because it's so left field, but yet enjoyable. I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about this sort of experience of listening to this song like this?
It feels like home.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a. It feels like I wouldn't necessarily want to. If I were to put this on and walk around Los Angeles, I might be worried at how I'd be feeling at the end of the walk.
Yeah, I can see that. It's funny, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I used to listen to this song on repeat when I walked around where I lived at the time, which is El Segundo, which is a strange part of town where to the south you've got a wastewater treatment plant. To the west, right on the beach. To the north you've got the airport. To the south you have the Chevron refinery, massive Chevron refinery. And right to the east of El Segundo, this little sliver of Los Angeles, you have the defense contractors like Boeing and all those sort of evil military-industrial complex.
Sort of a trifecta.
It's got everything, and it just, for some reason, it really goes along with this music. It's industrial, and it's unpleasant.
Literally.
Yeah, very much so. It's toxic. It's toxic garbage music, and you can just really get in the thick of it.
So let's play the next song, and this is. Would you like to introduce this next one?
Sure. The next song is going to be Jonestown, which is a track by another Primal industrial band from San Francisco around the exact same time. Also came out in 1980. It's called Jonestown. The band is Chrome.
Are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling a little paranoid, but I also enjoy it. It's sort of that
How could someone possibly enjoy this, Alex?
because I feel like my life might be at risk a little bit. I gotta watch my back, but I'm enjoying it because I'm also swimming through it. I'm not. I feel like I'm floating through this experience of paranoia, of anxiety, and therefore escaping it. It's being reflected back on me in some way. It's sort of a very trippy sort of experience to listen to a song like this, which is again unsettling like the last one. Same repetitive beat. The music itself is a little bit more. It's a little less chaotic. Vocals are equally down key, downbeat, very monotone. But the vibe I get is even more chill, I suppose, than the last song, but also unsettling, of course.
Do you think for someone who might be being pushed by this song, do you think there's anything to be gained by just sitting and listening to a song you absolutely hate?
Well, if you just hate it, then I don't think you should listen to it I think if
could this grow? This could grow on
absolutely.
somebody.
You got to give stuff a chance, right? If you're interested in this, if it grabs you in any way, you should absolutely explore it. I think it's either going to grab you or it's not, and not to make any statements that would, put trauma above all else. But if you're somebody who's maybe got a sense of desperation about you. You might this music might resonate with you a little bit more so than it might with your average sort of pop music fan. Not there's anything wrong with being a pop music fan. I love pop music as well. But when you find that you're able to sort of expand your sonic vocabulary by taking in more music, then stuff like this becomes just normal to listen to. Right?
No, and Chrome was a very influential band who also never got past their cult status. And
right.
I had listened to, of course, other songs across their discography, and many more of their tracks are something you could presumably get up and dance to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not this song. This is very, actually, specifically unlike other songs on the album Red Exposure, and I'm wondering why you picked this one.
I picked this song because, that's a good question, I picked it because it is the gothiest, the gothiest sort of Chrome song. Chrome is a gothy band. They're also an acid rock band. They're also an industrial band.
And the two more well-known members, there were many, but the two most fun named
founding members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Helios Creed and Damon Edge. They were both from Southern California, strangely, from Huntington Beach or something like that, Manhattan Beach, I think. In any case, they formed this band in San Francisco, and Helios Creed was a guitar player. He still carries on the band to this day. They had a split, the two of them, at some point. But
Damon Edge, I believe, died in 1995 of a heart attack.
Yes, he was found in his apartment after having been there, moldering away for a couple weeks, which is insane. Very, very unfortunate. God rest his soul. But in any case, Helios still carries the band on. He was the guitar player, and I believe that you were able to pick out an interesting quote of his from an interview about how he was influenced in terms of his guitar playing.
Well, we had talked about, you had mentioned prior the acid damage. It has an acid damaged quality about it, and right. So Helios Creed had talked about listening to Black Sabbath on acid when he was 17, and then trying to recreate those sounds on his guitar later in life.
That's basically what his whole guitar approach stemmed from, and so there's all these phasers. He would always use the phaser effect, and in a way that was very uncomfortable and interesting and just and fun. It's fun music at the end of the day. This isn't the most fun Chrome song, but you will find many Chrome songs like on the same album, which I do have right here. That you can dance to, and you can have a fun dance party, a gothy dance party to many of these songs. New Age, Eyes on Mars, Electric Chair is a classic. So this song in particular, in keeping with the sort of darkest of the dark possible, sort of mysterious, weird vibes, seemed appropriate for today's episode.
I believe I was reading this about Chrome, is that they actually used metal scrapings to create, they used metal garbage to create sounds.
A lot of the bands were doing that back then, and Chrome also was interesting because they made tape machines part of their instrumental oeuvre. So they would use reel-to-reel tapes, spin them backwards, spin them forwards, do loops and things like that, and that's kind of what you're hearing in this song, is a loop. They also used analog synthesizers as well, just like Factrix did.
Would you say that these bands were precursors to, say, a Nine Inch Nails?
They were, I think, definitely, and I think importantly, with this Chrome song, Jonestown in particular, it's a precursor to trip-hop. I think it might be, I've always thought of it as the first trip-hop song. We're talking 1980, nothing had ever really sounded like this before. They did it for 3 minutes or whatever and got out, and I never heard another Chrome song that sounded quite like that, but I did hear the same exact sort of vibe bubble up in the mid to late 90s with Tricky and with Portishead, and it's just, there's a clear through line to me between, what Chrome was doing with Jonestown and what, those bands were doing in that time period, and I find that to be pretty exciting.
I find that to be very interesting.
It is. It's fun.
Let's go on to the next song.
All right, let's do it.
Lastly, we have Minimal Man, Pull Back the Bolts. lyrics too, if you listen to this song, are very alarming.
Yeah. What is?
A lot of the lyrics.
Yeah, the lyrics
they're
are
singing about.
I think all of them. You know, this one especially. This one is more direct. You know, in the sense that it's pretty clearly. It's clearly critical of gun use, I think, and also explicitly endorsing it, saying, "Hey, you like guns? Fucking, you know, pull back the bolt."
And that is what I mean by alarming, is that someone could listen to this and hear it as a criticism of gun use and violence in America, but someone else might see it as an endorsement.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that subtlety. You know, another band that did a lot of that was Black Flag, and they were criticized heavily for that. And songs like, you know, Slip It In or My War, even, you know. It's ambiguity that I think makes music like this fun, because you have these smart people making these songs that are clearly, you know, they're punk rock in the sense that they're holding a mirror up to society and saying, look at how fucked you are. And, you know, what could be gothier than standing outside of society and giving it the middle finger, and also discussing violence at the same time lyrically. I think it's intriguing, it's inflammatory, and the ambiguity lends it a lot of sort of, I guess, I don't want to say intellectual credibility, but it makes it interesting. It's fun to listen to, you know, and I think it's pretty clear when you listen to a song like this what the intention was, if you really listen to it and you sort of think about it for a minute, you know.
I like the organs in the background.
Yeah, there's organs, you know, there's this song definitely has a bit more of a death rock flair in a way, but, you know, and it's a little bit less industrial. So the other two picks were definitely industrial. Minimal Man has always been cited as one of the primal industrial bands from San Francisco as well. And if we had listened to their earlier singles and their first album, it's a lot. You know, you want to talk about Factrix being hard to listen to. Minimal Man was even harder to listen to. They were even more experimental, less structured. And so I wanted to pick a song from them that was a little bit more put together. So they sort of pulled themselves together in a way to make music like this by 1983. So that's when this song is from. And I think it still retains that gothy sort of, creepy vibe just enough to be, you know, something that sort of stands on its own. There's not a lot of music that from that era that sounds quite like this. You know, it's poppy, it's punky, it's gothy, you know, a little bit less industrial, but it's enjoyable, you know. And I think that, you know, if any song's gonna pull anybody in, it's probably that one.
That actually, it's interesting you mentioned that song, because reading through the comments, I was seeing a string of comments saying Morgan Freeman's son brought me here, and I was looking into it, and apparently what that is referring to is, I guess Morgan Freeman's son is an AKA of Tyler the Creator, who called himself Morgan Freeman's son, and during an interview with a Nardwar, Tyler the Creator mentioned this song, and if you'll notice, if you look at the Spotify playlist, Pull Back the Bolt has over 1 million plays, and the next most listened to song is only 100,000.
That's incredible. There's almost 30,000 views of this song alone on YouTube, which is interesting. I didn't know that it had that sort of pedigree. I think it's probably their most well-known song, and that's most likely why. And I find that really awesome. And good for Tyler the Creator for calling it out. We need more of that. I know Tyler the Creator likes Stereolab, and he's not afraid to talk about the weirdo white kid bands he likes, and I think that's wonderful. And you know, I also really respect this band because the guy who started it, I can't remember his name.
Patrick something?
Patrick something, yeah. He also worked with Factrix members. So Factrix members were involved in Minimal Man before they formed Factrix. So there's that connection. But he also always, his approach, and I love this, he called it anti-music. He was making anti-music. And I think that's such a fun way to approach music, to deconstruct it and make music that is anti-music, but yet is still enjoyable if you're in the right state of mind for it.
Do you think that someone who has is making anti-music, is their end game to challenge the audience or to ultimately not give a shit?
I think it's that, both things that you just said, but also to make something interesting that isn't self-indulgent, pompous, or pretentious, something you can fucking rock to and enjoy if you're skewed enough to let it get into your head. And that's the brilliance of making music like this, and why it's so difficult to do it. And why it's so fascinating that during this time period there was just so much of this music being made by people across the country and across the world who figured out that you can make music that is very challenging, and if you just get the formula right, you can also make music that's really fucking fun to listen to and stands the test of time. And you know, you look at it 20, 30, 40 years later, and you know, records like that are rare from the time are just go for thousands of dollars at this point. And
Really?
yeah, and it's this sort of, you know, there's the commodity fetishism involved in like the limited edition, like antique at this point.
Sure.
But also, these records wouldn't be so valuable if they weren't so goddamn good. You know, there's a lot of really fascinating, unique stuff going on with each of these artists, and I think that's what makes it worth listening to. And they just happen to be pretty goddamn gothic at the same time.
So perhaps you, next time you listen to music, maybe not listening to it for necessarily a sense of enjoyment, but as a way to challenge and inspire your mind in ways that you didn't use music to inspire it in ways before.
Right, and therein you will end up enjoying it more, and you might end up finding that you're accessing parts of your brain that you never knew were there.
Well, whether these primordial rumblings have, for you, evolved into a deeper appreciation, or you've just stepped in a gooey puddle and are now shaking it off your shoe, this has been Sound Advice.
Thank you for watching.